For me as a director, was to sort of embrace the spirit of...
They say Ron Howard is too nice to make enemies, and yet for a man who built his career on kindness, humility, and quiet brilliance, even he couldn't escape Hollywood's darker side for decades. Ron has directed some of the biggest stars on earth, and from Tom Hanks to Russell Crowe, navigating egos, tempers, and scandals that would drive most directors out of the business. But behind that calm, red-haired smile is a man who's seen it all. The clashes, the betrayals, and the rare moments that tested his patience to the breaking point, because even the nicest man in Hollywood has limits. Throughout his career, Ron has spoken about certain actors and moments that haunted him, not because they ruined his movies, but because they reveal just how fragile the balance between genius and chaos can be. These aren't just difficult performers. These are the ones who crossed lines, broke trust, and changed him forever. Some were co-stars from his early television days. Others were Mayas stars who made life on set unbearable. But all of them share one thing in common. They forced Ron Howard to confront the one truth he'd avoided for years. And that being kind doesn't always mean being respected. From the jealousies of Happy Days to the public scandals of The Dilemma, these stories peel back the curtain on the man who defined decency in an industry built an ego. This is the untold truth of the 6 people Ron Howard once described as the hardest and at times the most evil he ever worked with. It's hard to overstate just how iconic Happy Days was in the 1970s. For millions of Americans, it was more than a sitcom. It was comfort television. And at the heart of it were 2 faces everyone loved: Ron Howard's Richie Cunningham and Henry Winkler's Arthur Fonzarelli. But while viewers saw 2 best friends on screen, behind the cameras, a quiet storm was brewing. Ron Howard was already a household name when Happy Days premiered in 1974. As the former child star of the Andy Griffith Show, he was used to being the center of attention. The wholesome, clean-cut Richie was designed to be the show's moral compass, the everyman the audience related to. Then came Henry Winkler. At first, his leather-jacketed Fonzo was meant to appear in just a handful of episodes, but something unexpected happened. America fell in love with him. The cool motorcycle-riding bad boy wasn't supposed to be the lead. Yet week after week, the cheers from the studio audience grew louder. By season 3, fans of Fever had taken over. Fan mail flooded in, more than 80% of it addressed to Winkler. Executives noticed, writers noticed, and Ron Howard noticed most of all. He later admitted that it was a strange feeling watching the spotlight shift. In the early seasons, Richie was the focus of nearly every episode, he recalled. But suddenly the writers were building entire storylines around Fansa. It was like watching the show I knew turn into something else. Reporters began asking uncomfortable questions. Do you feel like a supporting actor on your own show? Howard handled it gracefully, but inside he was struggling. It wasn't jealousy in the penny sense. It was fear of losing control over something he'd helped build. The tension came to a head in 1975 when ABC executives floated a Shocking idea, renamed the series Phonies. Happy Days. Winkler was horrified. I told them absolutely not. He later said. It would insult the cast and the audience, but for Ron it was deeper than that. He told producers that if they changed the name, he'd walk. I'll quit the show and go back to film school. He said flatly. I mean it. That was a bold statement for a 21-year-old actor under contract with one of TV's biggest networks. But it worked. The executives backed off. The show stayed Happy Days. Not long after Winkler and Howard finally confronted the elephant in the room. During a shoot in Arizona, Winkler climbed into Ron's Volkswagen after filming and asked, "Are you okay with how things are going?" Ron didn't hesitate. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said. "You're doing great work. I'm proud of you. I just had to get over it." That moment changed everything. Winkler later said it cemented their lifelong friendship. That's who Ron is. Honest, humble, and bigger than the business. Decades later, they'd reunite on Arrested Development, proving that whatever early tension existed had evolved into deep respect. Ron even said, "My time on Happy Days was great because of the people I worked with, especially Henry. It was a story of rivalry turned respect, a reminder that even when fame plays favorites, integrity can outlast ego." Fast forward to 2010. Ron Howard is no longer the young actor from Happy Days. He's an Academy Award-winning director known for emotional storytelling and clean reputation. Then comes The Dilemma, a buddy comedy starring Vince Vaughn and Kevin James. The movie seemed harmless enough until its first trailer dropped. In the very first scene, Van looks into the camera and says, "Electric cars are gay." Within hours, the internet exploded. Advocacy groups condemned it. CNN's Anderson Cooper called it offensive and dangerous. Universal panicked and pulled the trailer, and suddenly Ron Howard, Hollywood's nicest guy, was in the middle of a PR nightmare. Executives wanted the line gone. Publicists wanted an apology. But Howard saw it differently. The line, he argued, wasn't about mocking anyone. It was about portraying Van's character. A brash, impulsive man who speaks before thinking. It defines who he is. Howard wrote in an open letter to the Los Angeles Times. The response was mixed. Some praised Howard's defense of creative freedom. Others accused him of tone deafness. On morning shows, panels debated whether intent excused impact. Then Van made things worse. Comedy is about laughing at our differences, he told reporters, a statement that poured gasoline on the fire. The controversy overshadowed the entire film. Van's reputation took a hit, and The Dilemma bombed at the box office. Critics called it out of touch and awkwardly insensitive. Howard barely spoke of it afterward. When asked years later, he simply said, "Every controversy fades." But behind that calm response, industry insiders say the ordeal rattled him. It was the first time in his career that Ron's image of universal likability was tested, and he realized how quickly Hollywood's mood could shift. Still true to form, he stood by his cast and his principles, proving once again that integrity sometimes means standing in the storm. Alone. By 1995, Ron Howard was a respected director. But one event that year changed everything, and not in the way he expected. Apollo 13 was a triumph. 9 Oscar nominations, rave reviews, global acclaim. Yet when nominations for Best Director were announced, Howard's name was missing. The industry was stunned. That year, Mel Gibson won for Braveheart. Years later, when Howard finally won for A Beautiful Mind, fate came full circle. Gibson was the one presenting the award. Days before the Oscars, Mel told him backstage, "I'm going to give you an Oscar, buddy." Ron laughed, thinking it was typical Gibson bravado. But when Gibson opened the envelope that night and read Howard's name, the room erupted. Ron turned around in disbelief and asked to see the car himself. Sure enough, there it was, his name, printed in bold. That moment said everything about his humility. Even in triumph, he doubted it until he saw proof, though he never spoke negatively about Gibson. Insiders recall tension during their 1996 collaboration on Ransom. Mel's intensity and unpredictability clashed with Howard's measured precision. Still, Howard handled it with professionalism, earning Gibson's respect in the process. It was a rare pairing of fire and calm, one that left Howard both exhausted and enlightened. Hollywood is obsessed with youth and spectacle. Back to the Future, The Goonies and Cocoon. Ron Howard, then only 31, directs a story about aging and renewal. His cast, seasoned veterans led by Wilford Brimley, the tough as nails cowboy actor known for his non-nonsense attitude. From day one, they clashed. Brimley believed in instinct. Ron believed in control. The biggest fight came during the scene where the elderly characters discover the rejuvenating pool. Ron wanted big reactions. Awe, joy, disbelief. Brimley refused. Old men don't act like kids, he grumbled. He played it quiet, subtle. Against direction. The take was unusable. The reshoot cost nearly $200,000. Crew members recalled Brimley throwing a mug, once cursing at an assistant director and snapping, "I've been old all my life. Son, I don't need your advice on how to play it." Ron, ever composed, would step outside to calm down. He never yelled, a cinematographer said, but you could see it in his eyes. He was boiling. Yet, despite the chaos, Cocoon became a hit, winning 2 Oscars. Brimley later admitted Ron was right more than I was. Their working styles couldn't have been more different. But the outcome proved Howard's quiet discipline could turn even the most stubborn performance into gold. For all his patience, compassion, and decency, Ron Howard's journey. Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates just like this.